Long ago, in a cave of the beautiful blue hills of the Lotus Land, a little bright-eyed baby lay fast asleep. He slept as softly and as sweetly in his rock cradle as the little nowadays babies do upon their downy pillows. For the bees hummed his lullaby, and the birds and mountain brooks sang his cradle songs. The cave was filled with sweet scents from flowery fields, and no passerby disturbed the little sleeper, Hermes. Hermes was the son of Zeus, and being the child of so great a father, was of course quite different from other children. Indeed, he was a very wonderful baby. For when he was but 4 days old, he crept out of the cave, then stood up, and after a few trials began walking along the soft sand, and by he began to talk. He talked to the birds, insects, and flowers, and they talked to him, although in a different language. Everything else was silent as the sound of the lyre trembled in the air. And as the soft, sweet music attracted their attention, the birds hopped about Hermes, and the animals drew near to listen. He sang of the ocean, with its white-crested waves, of the sandy beach and pink-linned shells, but he sang best of all about his great father, Zeus, and of his beautiful mother, Maia. By he grew tired of this pleasant occupation, and, looking about him, saw on the faraway hills the white oxen of Apollo, quietly grazing. He thought that it would be great sport to drive them from hill to hill. He knew he could show them where the greenest grasses grew. Apollo had so many oxen, surely he would not miss a few. Thus did Hermes try to ease his mind, for although no one had told him that it would not be right to drive the oxen away, he really felt that it would not be treating Apollo fairly. After looking at the oxen for some time, he decided to help himself, sly little Hermes, in order that Apollo should not find which way they had gone. He tied twigs to his own soft feet and to those of the oxen, then drove them by a crooked path to a faraway cave. He did not feel quite comfortable about it when he came to his cave and went back into his cradle, for he was still the baby Hermes. Although so sly and cunning, he did not feel quite right about the oxen. His conscience troubled him, he could not sleep. He began to wish he had not taken them. Apollo was very angry when he found his oxen missing. His usually good temper was dreadfully ruffled, and he went about in a great hurry, asking everybody about the lost animals. But no one had seen them. At length he came to an old man who had watched Hermes as he drove the cattle away. At first the old man refused to tell anything. But when Apollo promised him fruitful vines, and good harvests, the old man was so pleased that he told Apollo what he had seen, how a little boy with a staff in his hands had driven them away over the hills. Now, Apollo knew who the little boy was, and went at once to the cave where lay Hermes, pretending to be asleep. When Apollo asked for his oxen, Hermes covered his ears and ears, and refused to talk. But Apollo coaxed and threatened, and at last said some cross things. He went to Zeus, who bade Hermes to come with Apollo and settle the dispute. So the angry sun god and the naughty Hermes went together to the great hall where all the gods and goddesses were waiting, drinking nectar and eating ambrosia, while the pretty Hebes served them politely. How the gods and goddesses laughed when Apollo said that the little bobby boy, Hermes, had stolen his cattle. But when Zeus said, "Hermes, you must give back the oxen, and put them upon the hillside pasture again," there was no other way to do. So the cattle were brought back, and when Apollo again visited the cave of Hermes, there was peace and friendship between them.